You are going to have to choose between them. He slowly turns his monitor toward me. It is a photograph from last month's Bar Association gala. My hand is resting at the small of Iris Callahan's back. Her body is leaned in against my hip. Our faces are turned toward each other in a way I did not know cameras had captured. Grant Cade is my managing partner. Iris is opposing counsel on the biggest trial of my career. She has beaten me in court twice already. She had never let me touch her before that night. She kept my hand at her waist for 12 seconds after the flash. Now I have to choose between her and the partnership. If you want to hear uncensored, too hot for YouTube stories, check out my Patreon in the description. Tell us where you are watching from and subscribe. The gala was at the Whitfield Hotel in the third week of October, the annual Bar Association charity event that the entire legal community pretended to endure and privately calibrated their careers around. 200 attorneys in the ballroom. 6 firms sponsoring at the platinum tier. The kind of evening where the shape of the year's private conversations gets set. I had been at Whitmore and Cade for 7 years. Senior associate for the last 2. Up for partner consideration in the spring, which meant every choice I made between October and April would be studied by 3 name partners and a compensation committee. Iris Callahan had been a partner at Merrick Stone for 4 years. She was 38 years old, 6 years older than me, and had made partner 2 years faster than the average for her track. She had made partner because she was the best trial attorney in her firm and possibly in the city, and the reason nobody said this out loud was because Iris preferred it to remain a private assessment among people who had actually watched her cross-examine a witness. I had watched her cross-examine 3 witnesses over 6 years. I had lost 2 of those trials. The third had settled the morning of jury selection, which the profession counted as a draw, but which I counted as a small victory because settling meant she had not been able to finish what she had started. We had not spoken outside of professional contexts in 6 years, not because there was any reason not to, simply because the geography of our lives did not intersect. She was at Merrick Stone. I was at Whitmore and Cade. We arrived at the same courthouses and left them separately. The one time she had presented at a Bar Association conference where I had been in the audience, she had looked up during the question period, seen me raising my hand, and taken a different question first. I had noticed. Of course I had noticed. The gala photograph was scheduled for 8:45, immediately after the awards presentation. Every partner and senior associate from the platinum tier firms was expected to appear on the marble staircase for a group portrait that would appear in the following year's promotional materials. I had been drinking, which was true but not the whole truth. I had been drinking specifically because Iris was in the room, and I had been aware of her position in the room for 2 hours, and I had decided that the only intelligent thing to do with this awareness was to convert it into something I could publicly explain, which was 3 cocktails and a small ache behind my ribs I was choosing to blame on the shrimp appetizers. The photographer called us up in groups by firm. Whitmore and Cade first. I stood next to Ada Whitmore, who at 64 still made her own way through professional evenings with the poised endurance of a woman who had built the firm from the ground up in 1988. Ada put her hand at the small of my back the way she did when she was proud of someone. The photograph was taken, and we stepped down. Merrick Stone was next. Iris walked up the marble staircase in a deep green dress, the color of pine at dusk, sleeveless, silk. The kind of dress that was expensive without needing to declare itself. Her dark hair was up in a low twist, and her only jewelry was a pair of small platinum earrings and a watch on her left wrist that I had noticed before and never asked about. She stood with her firm, posed for their photograph, and stepped down, and I did not look at her because I had decided 6 years ago that not looking at Iris Callahan at professional functions was a discipline I would maintain until I could no longer justify the effort. The photographer called for the combined shot next, all sponsors together, 40 attorneys, arranged by height and firm, and the loose logic of who could stand next to whom without visible political complications. I ended up beside Iris. The photographer moved us into position. Someone tucked me toward her shoulder. I was standing this close to her for the first time in 6 years, and I had a decision to make about what I was going to do with the next 30 seconds. The photographer called for warmer, tighter, closer. I put my hand at the small of her back. I did it as a joke, which is the version I have been telling myself for 6 weeks, and which is true, and which is also incomplete. I did it as a joke because Iris Callahan was standing beside me in a green silk dress, and the photographer had asked for warmer, and if I did not do something in that moment, I was going to spend the rest of the evening arranging my face around the fact that I had wanted to touch her for 6 years, and the joke was cheaper than the truth. I said into her ear, quietly enough that only she could hear. The tax lawyers in the front row look like they've been threatened. Her body went very still against mine. Then, slowly, she leaned her weight into my hip. Not a lot. A degree of pressure that could still be explained away by the photographer's positioning, but intentional, chosen. Her hand found my waist. The flash went off. The photographer said something about one more, just to be safe, and we held the position, and the flash went off again. Perfect. Thank you all. The staircase began to break up. Attorneys stepped down and away. The group photograph was over. Iris did not let go. Her hand stayed at my waist. Her body stayed leaned against my hip. For 1 second, then 2, then 5. The other attorneys were moving past us down the stairs. Someone said something to me about the awards presentation. I could not process the words. Iris's hand was still at my waist. I counted, 12 seconds after the second flash. 12 seconds in which she stood beside me on the marble staircase of the Whitfield Hotel ballroom, with her hand at my waist and made no move to remove it, and the 20 other attorneys of Merrick, Stone, and Whitmore and Cade walked past us in a chatter I do not remember. And neither of us said anything at all. At the 12th second, she let go, stepped down, did not look at me, walked back toward her firm's table. I stood on the staircase alone for another 5 seconds, trying to remember what my body was supposed to be doing. Ada Whitmore was waiting for me at the bottom. "You looked cozy up there," she said, in the tone she used when she was diagnosing something and pretending she was not. "The photographer called for warmer," I said. Ada looked at me. She had watched me try 3 cases against Iris Callahan and had debriefed me after each one. She had, on one particular evening after the second loss, sat across from me in her office at 9 at night and said, "Of Iris, you have been circling that woman since your 3rd year, and you are going to have to decide what you're doing with that eventually." I had told her at the time that she was reading things into what was simply professional respect. Ada had not argued. Ada rarely argued when she was right. She was looking at me the same way now. "The photographer called for warmer," she said, "and Iris Callahan stayed on that staircase with her hand at your waist for 12 seconds after the photograph was over." "You were counting?" "I was watching. There is a difference." I looked past her toward the ballroom. Iris was at the Merrick Stone table, seated beside her own managing partner, drinking water. She had not looked in my direction once since she left the staircase, which was, if anything, more information than looking would have been. "I'll be at the bar," I said. "Good. Drink water." "You are going to have a complicated year." I went to the bar and ordered a club soda with lime because I had already been past sensible before the photograph and had no intention of being past useful before the evening was over. I stood at the bar for perhaps 3 minutes before I felt her come up beside me. Iris did not order immediately. She stood at the counter and looked at the row of bottles behind the bar and let the silence between us extend to the length it would go before one of us broke it. She broke it. "Whiskey," she said to the bartender. "Neat. Whatever your best is that costs the bar association the most." The bartender laughed and turned to the top shelf. Iris did not look at me. "Sutton, Callahan, you did well in the Marchetti trial. You settled the Marchetti trial before it went to jury." "I know. That's why I said you did well." The bartender set a glass in front of her. She thanked him. She did not drink from it. "I've been trying to decide," she said, "whether to have this conversation at this bar or find a reason to have it somewhere less witnessed." I turned to face her. She was in profile, her jaw clean and precise, and I could see the small telltale line at her temple that appeared when she was making an effort to keep her expression composed. In the courtroom, I had watched that line appear and disappear across dozens of hours of proceedings, and I had learned to read it as her tell. The line was present now. "What conversation?" I said. She finally looked at me. Dark eyes, direct. "The one where I explain why I did not remove my hand," she said. I did not know what to say. "I don't need an explanation." That's not what I asked. I asked whether to have the conversation here or somewhere less witnessed. Her voice was level. It was the voice she used in cross-examination when she was moving toward a question she already knew the answer to and wanted to make sure the witness said it out loud. I had been on the receiving end of that voice 3 times in the past 6 years, and I knew, in a bodily way, what it did to me when it was aimed in my direction with no evidentiary purpose. "Somewhere less witnessed?" I said. She picked up her whiskey. She did not drink from it. "There is a small library off the mezzanine. The Bar Association reserved it for the auction items. Nobody will be there until the raffle at 10:15. How long do we have?" 19 minutes, she said, checking the watch on her left wrist. She walked away first. I gave it 90 seconds. Then I picked up my club soda and walked out of the ballroom. The Whitfield's mezzanine library was tucked off to one side, a small room lined with the kind of bound legal volumes that hotels buy by the yard. There were 3 low tables with auction items displayed on them, a signed baseball, a case of wine, a weekend at a lake house. There was 1 leather armchair. Iris was standing at the window. She turned when I came in. I closed the door. The hotel machinery hummed somewhere in the walls. "Tell me what you were going to explain," I said. She looked at me for a long moment. The library light was different from the ballroom light, quieter, warmer, closer to skin. She was in the green dress. Her hand was resting on the back of the leather armchair. "I have been aware of you," she said, "since the deposition in the Rendell case, which was 4.5 years ago. And I have not known, at any point in those 4.5 years, how to be aware of that in a way that did not compromise the fact that we were opposing counsel and would continue to be opposing counsel for the foreseeable future." I said nothing. "So I have managed it. By not looking, by taking different questions at your panel appearances, by not attending events I knew you would be at, and when I could not avoid them, by not standing near you. You stood near me tonight. The photographer arranged us. I had 2 seconds to move and I did not move. I have been thinking about those 2 seconds every day since we walked up the staircase. And when you put your hand at my back, I made a different decision than the one I had been making for 4.5 years, and I let my body do what it wanted to do for 12 seconds instead of what my professional obligations required of it. That is a very lawyer-shaped confession. I am a lawyer. It is the only shape I have for confessions." We were quiet for a moment. "Why are you telling me this?" She looked at me. There was something in her eyes that was not composure. It was the effort of composure, which was different, and which I had never before seen in Iris Callahan's face. "Because I do not want to spend the rest of my career pretending the 12 seconds were nothing, and I owe you a real answer to what they were." "What were they?" She was very still. The moment I decided I was not going to keep managing this alone, the room was very quiet. "That's not a small thing to say to me. I know we are opposing counsel on 3 active matters. I know. You made partner 2 years faster than average because you never let anything compromise the courtroom. I know that too. So what are you asking me?" Her jaw moved, very slightly. "I am not asking you anything. I am telling you what the 12 seconds were, because you asked. And I would rather you have the accurate answer than the version you would construct in the absence of one." I looked at her. 6 years, 3 trials, a voice I had learned to read like an instrument. "We have court on Thursday." "Yes." "The Voss deposition. You are going to cross my witness." "Yes." "You are going to be excellent, because that is what you are." "Yes." "And I am going to be excellent too, because that is what I am." "Yes." "And after?" I said. "We are going to have another conversation." "Yes," she said. Her voice was quieter on that yes than any of the others. I heard it. I walked to the door. I put my hand on the handle. I did not open it yet. "Iris." She did not answer. I did not need her to. "Thank you for telling me," I said. I opened the door and left the library and walked back down to the ballroom, and both of us behaved for the rest of the evening exactly as we had for 6 years, except that both of us knew we were behaving now, and the difference was everything. I went home at 11:30. I did not sleep. The Voss deposition was on Thursday morning at the offices of Merrick Stone. I arrived at 8:40 for a 9 o'clock start with my associate Priya beside me and my client, Dr. Anwar Voss, half a step behind. Dr. Voss was a 53-year-old orthopedic surgeon suing his former employer for wrongful termination. The lead attorney for the defense was Iris. The conference room was on the 32nd floor, with a view of the harbor. Iris was already in the room, in a charcoal suit and a white silk blouse and dark heels, reviewing exhibits with one of her associates. Her hair was down today, which she never did in court but occasionally did in depositions when she wanted to appear less immediately intimidating to the witness. It was a small manipulation, and it worked, and I had learned 6 years ago not to be fooled by it. She looked up when we came in, nodded once at me. Professional. Clean. Sutton. Priya. Dr. Voss. Callahan. We took our seats. The court reporter set up her equipment. Iris began at 9:02. She was excellent. She was, in fact, the best I had ever seen her. She led Dr. Voss through the preliminaries with a precision that made every subsequent question feel inevitable. She anticipated my objections and phrased her questions to prevent them. By noon, she had established a record that would make my summary judgment argument significantly harder than I had expected. I objected 16 times. 14 were sustained. Iris did not react to either. She simply adjusted and continued, and did not look at me, except when the record required it. At the lunch break, Priya closed the door of our conference room and looked at me. You have not looked at her once. During the deposition, every time she has finished a question, you have looked at Dr. Voss, or the court reporter, or your notes. I looked at her when I objected. 16 times. Every objection took exactly 1.5 seconds and then you looked away. I noticed because I was watching for it. Why were you watching for it? Priya considered how to answer this. She was not, by nature, an indirect person, but she had been trained by 7 years at a firm that specialized in careful language. Because the way you talk about her when we prep is different from the way you talk about the other partners you've been up against. And I wanted to see what that looked like in the room. What did it look like? Priya said, carefully. Like she was doing the same thing to you. I did not say anything. I don't need you to explain it. I am only telling you because you are going to have to look at her at some point in the next 4 hours, and I did not want you to be surprised that people would notice when you did. I looked at Priya for a long moment. You are going to be an excellent partner someday. I have heard, Priya said, dry, that people are already suggesting so. The afternoon of the deposition was worse than the morning. Iris moved into the substantive questions about Dr. Voss's clinical judgment, and did so with the surgical precision of an attorney who had spent 6 weeks preparing for exactly this line of questioning. She did not raise her voice. She did not become aggressive. She simply asked question after question with a level composure. By 5 o'clock, Iris had put my client through a ringer we were going to spend the next 2 days rebuilding him from. At 5:15, I looked at her. I had not planned to. It was one of those looks that happens because the meeting has been going for 8 hours and your professional discipline briefly slips. Except this time when I looked at her, she was already looking at me. For approximately half a second. Then she looked back at her notes and asked her next question. Priya, who had been watching for it, wrote something on her legal pad and slid it toward me. It said, yes. I closed my folder and did not open it again for the rest of the afternoon. We finished at 6:45. Sutton, Iris said before I could leave. A word. Priya looked at me. I nodded. She left with Dr. Voss. Iris and I stood in the conference room, alone, with the harbor lights beginning to come on in the windows behind her. Your objection, at 3:47. On the hospital administrator's alleged bias. What about it? You could have won it if you had cited Fernandez versus Metropolitan Medical instead of the state code. I stared at her. I am telling you, she said, so that you know it for the summary judgment brief. I do not want to be the reason you lose an argument you could have won with a different citation. You are telling me how to argue against you. Yes. Why? The composure was intact, but the effort of it was showing at the edges to anyone who knew where to look. Because I would rather you lose to me on the merits than on a citation. Iris. That is all I wanted to say. See you at 9 tomorrow. She picked up her folder. Left the room. I stood at the conference table and I understood that the 12 seconds on the marble staircase had not been an isolated event. They had been the first honest moment in 6 years of a slow, carefully managed conversation, and the deposition had just been the second. I went home. I did not sleep well. I did not see her for 11 days. The summary judgment motion in Prescott was filed on the 8th day. I read her brief carefully and stayed at the office until 11:30 at night, working through the response with Priya. At 10:40, my phone lit up on the desk beside me with a text from a number I had not saved but recognized. Page 14 of my brief. I miscited the appellate decision in footnote 42. It should be volume 87, not 84. Fix your response before you submit. I read the text 3 times. Priya, who had noticed my face change, said, "What is it?" Iris Callahan just texted me a citation error in her own brief. Priya was quiet for a moment. That is either the most collegial thing I have ever heard of, or a much bigger conversation than the citation. Both. I did not respond to the text. I fixed my response. 2 days later, at the summary judgment hearing, we split. She won on the primary claim, and I won on 2 of the alternative theories. In the hallway after, we passed each other. She did not stop. I did not stop. Her fingers brushed the back of my hand as we passed each other in the narrow corridor, which was either an accident or the smallest possible thing she could have done that was not entirely accidental. Ada Whitmore called me into her office the following Tuesday. She poured me a cup of tea, which she did only when the conversation was going to be one I would not have wanted to have. Grant asked me last Thursday whether you should be conflicted off the Voss case. I set the tea down. Grant Cade, our managing partner, who saw the photograph of the gala staircase in the Bar Association newsletter this morning and did the arithmetic on which attorney was next to which. I was quiet. I told him that you have tried 3 cases against Iris Callahan over 6 years and won 1, lost 2, and settled none in her favor when settlement was warranted, and that you are the most disciplined litigator on this floor. And that if he wanted to conflict you off Voss on the basis of a Bar Association photograph, he was going to have to explain to me, in writing, exactly what conflict he thought existed. What did he say? He said he would like it if I would talk to you. I looked at Ada. She had, over 3.5 decades, developed the specific expression of a woman who was going to say something difficult and was not going to soften it because she loved you. I do not need you to explain anything to me. I am not asking. I am telling you Grant is watching. The compensation committee is watching. You are up for partner in the spring, and a photograph in a bar newsletter is nothing in isolation. But if there are more photographs, or if the Voss case ends in a way that people can question, it will become something. I understand. Do you? I understand that I need to be more careful. That is not what I asked. I asked whether you understand that you are going to have to decide something. And that whatever you decide, you are going to have to decide it deliberately and with the full accounting of what it costs, and not in the middle of a courthouse hallway on a Thursday. I said nothing. You are the best senior associate I have trained in 20 years. I want you to make partner in the spring. I also want you to be honest with yourself about what is happening. Those 2 things are not incompatible. But they require you to be very careful with both of them. Thank you, Ada. She looked at me for a long moment. You are welcome. Now finish your tea and go win the Voss trial and let me deal with Grant. I went back to my office. I closed the door and I sat at my desk with my hands folded, and I thought, for the first time in 6 years, about what it would look like to not be an attorney at Whitmore and Cade. The answer was, I did not know. I sent Iris a text at 9:47 that night. The library at the Whitfield, same room, Saturday, 9 p.m. If you are willing. She responded at 10:02. Yes. Saturday came slowly. At 8:40 I changed into a dress I had not worn in 3 years, black and simple and unmemorable, which was what I had wanted from a dress on a Saturday night when I was going to a hotel to meet a woman who was my opposing counsel. I arrived at the Whitfield at 9. The mezzanine library was empty. The auction items had been removed. The leather armchair was still there. The bound volumes still lined the walls. The single lamp on the side table cast a small pool of warm light that did not reach the corners of the room. Iris was standing at the window. She was in dark trousers and a cream silk blouse, and her hair was down. No suit jacket, no watch, no professional armature at all. She turned when the door closed. "You came," I said. "I said I would." "I know. You came." She looked at me. In the small warm light of the library, without a courtroom or a deposition or a ballroom around her, Iris Callahan looked like a person I had not been permitted to see before. "I do not know how to do this," she said. "Neither do I. I need to say some things." "Okay." She walked toward me. Not all the way. Halfway. She stopped in the small pool of lamplight between the door and the window. "The citation in the Prescott brief. That was not collegial. It was me trying to give you something without a professional cover. And I do not have a framework for that. I have a framework for cross-examination. I have a framework for opposing counsel. I have a framework for the 12 seconds. I do not have a framework for texting you at 10:47 at night about a citation. I know. And I need you to understand that I am not going to be able to do this without making mistakes. I am going to look at you across a deposition table in a way that other people will notice. I have already done that. I saw Priya write something on her pad. You are very perceptive. I am your opposing counsel. I have been paying attention to your associate's face for 4 years. I know what she looks like when she is writing something for you. I did not have a response to that. Ada Whitmore called Grant Cade off the conflict question. I looked at her sharply. How do you know that? Because Grant Cade called our managing partner on the same afternoon he called Ada and asked whether Merrick Stone was going to move to conflict me off. And our managing partner told him that we had no interest in creating a conflict where none existed. You knew before Ada told me. I knew on Thursday afternoon. Iris, I am telling you, this is not going to remain a private conversation for very long. The photograph is public. The Voss case is on the trial calendar in 7.5 weeks. If we continue to be opposing counsel on high-profile matters and be photographed on staircases at bar association events, other people are going to have opinions, and those opinions are going to affect us both. I know. I want to know what you want to do. I looked at her. I want to try 3 cases against you in the next 12 months, and I want to be excellent at every one of them. And I want to eat dinner with you afterward, in this city, in restaurants where people will see us and draw conclusions I do not care about, because whatever the conclusions are, they will be based on incomplete information. Her mouth moved, very slightly. It was almost, not quite, a smile. That is a very ambitious agenda. I have been building it for 6 years. Have you? You have been aware of me for 4.5. I have been aware of you for 6. I got the head start. Yes, she said. You did. She took 1 step closer. Not more. I need to know, before we do anything else, whether you understand what this will cost you. Because it will cost you. You are up for partner in the spring and Grant Cade is watching. I do not want to be the reason you do not make partner. You will not be the reason. Blair. Her voice on my first name was different from her voice on my last. It was slower. She had never called me by my first name in 6 years. Say that again. Blair. Iris. She took 1 more step. She was close now. I am not going to touch you tonight. No. Not until the Voss trial is over, not until I have argued the case I am going to argue and you have argued yours, and neither of us has to wonder whether the other one was somewhere else. I understand. I want to be clear about why. Because you cannot afford to compromise the courtroom. Because I would not respect either of us if I did. I looked at her. How long until the trial concludes? Best case 12 weeks, worst case 16. 16 weeks. Yes. That is a long time. It has already been 6 years. 16 more weeks is not a long time. We stood at arm's length for what might have been 30 seconds and might have been 3 minutes. 16 weeks, I said again. Yes. Go home, Sutton. Good night, Callahan. I left the library and walked down the mezzanine stairs and out the front door of the Whitfield Hotel into the October cold, and I did not look back, and I did not sleep. And I understood that what had just happened between me and Iris Callahan was the beginning of the most disciplined 16 weeks of my professional life. The next weeks were the most complete professional performance of my life. I filed motions. I took depositions. I drafted trial briefs. I argued a preliminary evidentiary matter in front of Judge Sarto and won it. I stayed at the office until midnight, 4 nights a week. I ran the Voss case with the focused, exact attention of a woman who had made a commitment about time and had decided to inhabit that time completely. Iris did the same. Every filing she submitted was surgical. Every deposition she took drew a record I would have to work harder to answer. She was, at every professional turn, better than I had ever seen her be. We saw each other exactly 4 times in 3 weeks. 2 depositions, 1 pretrial conference, 1 status hearing. We spoke exactly what the record required and no more. Grant Cade called me into his office in the 4th week. Grant kept a photograph of his 3 sons on his desk. He had not, that I was aware of, ever asked me a question about my life outside the office in 7 years. Blair, come in. Sit. I sat. The Voss trial is in 5 weeks. I have been reviewing the case file with the compensation committee in anticipation of your partner consideration. I appreciate that. I want to be candid with you. There is a photograph. He turned his monitor toward me. It was the Bar Association newsletter online, the staircase photograph. I do not care what happened at a gala. I care about the appearance of impropriety in a case that this firm has a significant financial interest in seeing tried without complication. There is no impropriety. I did not say there was. I said appearance. I looked at him. Grant. I have tried 3 cases against Iris Callahan. I have never once compromised a courtroom position because of her. I have won 1 and lost 2, which is not a record any partner would question if opposing counsel were named John Callahan. Grant looked at me for a long moment. You are not wrong. I know, but you are also up for partner consideration in April, and the committee has a discretionary process, and Ada is 1 vote of 7. What are you asking me, Grant? I am asking you to conduct the Voss trial in such a way that there is no additional photograph, no additional appearance, no additional question. And I am telling you that if there is, the committee will make the decision it makes, and Ada will not be able to help you. That is a very specific request. It is a specific situation. Grant, I am running a wrongful termination trial with a client whose career depends on the outcome. I am not going to be able to run that trial and manage the appearance of my presence in a public photograph at the same time. Then choose. I did not respond immediately. He said, You are one of the best associates this firm has ever had. I want you to make partner. I am telling you what the committee cares about. What you do with that information is your decision. I stood. I understand what you are telling me. I am going to try the case. I am going to try it excellently. And when it is over, you and the committee are going to evaluate my record on the merits, or you are going to tell me directly that you are not. Thank you for the meeting. I walked out. I did not tell Iris. I could not tell Iris. Iris had been very specific. 16 weeks. The instant she knew Grant had made me Chunyaga, she would move on my behalf. She would find a way to protect me. Everything I was trying to protect would collapse. I could not tell Iris. I told Ada. Ada listened to my account of the conversation with Grant with her hands folded on her desk. When I finished, she was quiet for a moment. I am going to speak plainly, Blair. Grant is not entirely wrong. He is not right in the way he thinks he is right. He is right in that the committee is watching. He is wrong in that he thinks the answer is you managing your associations. The answer is winning the Voss trial and continuing to be excellent, and if the committee cannot see excellence when it is in front of them, then you are not going to make partner at this firm no matter what you do with Iris Callahan. So what do I do? You win the trial. And if I lose? Then you have a decision to make about whether this firm is where you want to be a partner. I stared at her. I am 64 years old, Blair. I have watched exactly this conversation happen to 3 women in my time here. 2 of them stayed. 1 of them left. Do you know which of the 3 has had the most fulfilling career? The one who left. Yes. I did not say anything. I want you to make partner. I am going to fight for you, but I am not going to lie to you about what this firm asks. And I'm going to tell you, one professional to another, that if what you are is what I think you are, then you are going to have a whole career in front of you, regardless of what Grant Cade decides in April. Do you understand me? I nodded. Now, go prepare your witness. The trial began on a Monday in early December. I did not see Iris outside of the courtroom for the entire first week. We were disciplined. We were surgical. We were the most excellent versions of ourselves. Judge Sarto commented in chambers on the second day that in 23 years on the bench, she had rarely seen 2 attorneys try a case with the mutual precision we were bringing to Voss. I told her, sincerely, that opposing counsel made the case a better trial than it would have been otherwise. Iris said, sincerely, Judge, I would say the same. We tried the case for 11 days. On the 12th day, at 10 in the morning, the jury returned a verdict for the defense. I lost. Dr. Voss lost. Iris won. Judge Sarto thanked the jury and adjourned, and I sat at the plaintiff's table for a moment longer than I needed to, feeling the specific hollow ache of a trial loss on a case where I had done the best work of my career and had still not been enough. Iris was at the defense table. She did not look at me. She was consoling her own client. I stood. Priya gathered our materials. Doctor. Voss shook my hand and told me, with quiet grace, that he had known this was a possible outcome and was grateful for the fight. I walked out of the courtroom. Iris and I passed each other in the corridor, in the presence of both firms and 3 journalists and Judge Sarto's clerk. We nodded professionally at one another. Iris said, "Congratulations on a well-tried case, Sutton." I said, "Congratulations on the verdict, Callahan." She kept walking. I kept walking. 16 weeks was over. I went home. I sat on the edge of my couch in the black dress I had worn to the verdict, and I did not cry, because crying was not what I was going to do about this. I made tea. I sat with it. I let the specific ache of losing to Iris Callahan settle into the specific ache of having agreed to 16 weeks of professional discipline and having actually completed them. I understood, at approximately 8:30 that evening, that I did not know how the next part was supposed to work. Iris had said we would have this conversation again on the day the verdict came down. She had not said what room. She had not said what time. She had not, in fact, contacted me at any point in the 11 days of the trial or the 6 days of jury deliberation. My phone had been silent since the summary judgment hearing 5 weeks before. At 9:15 there was a knock at my door. I stood. I did not know how she had my address. I did not know why she was here at 9:15 instead of somewhere neutral. I did not know what she was going to say. I had prepared over the course of the trial for many versions of this evening, and none of them included Iris Callahan standing in the hallway outside my apartment on the day I had lost to her, with a Bar Association photograph 6 weeks in our past, and Grant Cade's meeting 5 weeks in our past, and my whole professional future somewhere in the space between them. I opened the door. She was standing in a long, dark coat over what I could see was still the charcoal suit from the courtroom. Her hair was down. She was carrying nothing. She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said, "I know I said a different room. This is your room. I am aware that I am changing the terms of the agreement. If you want me to leave, I will leave." I looked at her. I stepped back and held the door open. Iris walked into my apartment on the night of the day I had lost the Voss trial to her, and the door closed behind her, and neither of us had any idea what was going to happen next. "Take off your coat," I said. She looked at me for a moment. Then she reached up and unfastened the 2 buttons at her throat and let the coat fall from her shoulders, and I took it from her and hung it on the hook by the door. And I understood as I did it that I was buying myself 30 seconds to figure out what I was going to do next. I turned back to face her. She was in the charcoal suit, white silk blouse. No jacket over it, which meant she had taken the suit jacket off in her car or on the walk from the courthouse. Her hair was down. She looked tired. I did not think I had ever seen Iris Callahan look tired before. "Come in," I said. "Sit. I will make tea." She followed me to the small living room at the back of the apartment. 2 armchairs by a window, a low table, a bookshelf. She sat in one of the armchairs. She did not lean back. I went to the kitchen and put the kettle on. I stood at the counter with my back to the living room, and I put both hands flat on the marble, and I let myself have exactly 30 seconds to feel what I was actually feeling, which was a specific and enormous grief that I had lost to her, and a specific and enormous relief that the 16 weeks were finally over, and a specific and enormous fear that I did not know what to do with a woman in my living room who had crossed the city on the night of a verdict I had not yet finished absorbing. The kettle whistled. I made tea. I brought 2 cups back and set one on the table beside her, and sat down in the other armchair, and neither of us said anything for a long time. Iris looked at the tea. She did not pick it up. "I did not know," she said. Finally, "if you would open the door." I did not know either. I have been sitting in my car for 40 minutes trying to decide whether it was fair to knock. "Iris, I know what fair looks like. Fair looks like giving you a week. Fair looks like not standing in your apartment 3 hours after I have taken from you the case you spent 5 months preparing." I decided I did not want to be fair. I decided I wanted to be honest. About what? About the fact that I have been counting 16 weeks, and I know they ended at 10 this morning. And I have spent the day trying to be professional about a verdict I care nothing about, in a case I care nothing about, against opposing counsel I care about more than any professional consideration I have ever managed. I set my tea down. "You care nothing about the Voss verdict? I care about the client. I care about the record. I do not care about winning against you, Blair. I have not cared about winning against you since the Rendell deposition. Then why did you win? Because it is what I do, and because I would not respect either of us if I threw a case." I looked at her. I said, "Grant Cade called me into his office 5 weeks ago and told me to choose between the partnership and you." She went very still. "Blair, he did not use your name. He used the word appearance, but the substance was the same. And he told me that if I could not conduct the Voss trial in such a way that there were no additional photographs, the committee would make the decision it made, and that Ada would not be able to help me." "You did not tell me." "No. Why did you not tell me?" "Because you would have moved. You would have moved on my behalf. You would have compromised your own trial, or you would have gone to your managing partner and asked to be recused. And Grant would have noticed, and the committee would have noticed, and I would have lost the partnership anyway. Only I would also have lost the ability to say that I had earned my seat on my own merits." Iris did not say anything for a long moment. Then she said, "You are correct. I know. I would have done all of those things. I know. Blair, I am going to say something and I need you to let me finish." "Okay." She looked at me. In the small lamplight of my living room, without the courtroom and without the ballroom and without the mezzanine library between us, Iris Callahan looked like a woman who had spent the past 16 weeks holding a shape she was tired of holding. "You have made a decision on my behalf without consulting me. I understand why. I do not fault you for it. I think if I had been in your position, I would have made the same decision. And I want to be very clear that I am not angry. I am also going to say that I do not want you to make that decision again." I looked at her. "I have been a partner for 4 years. I have made my career, and I have my settlement, and I am 40, and I have the standing to weather almost anything a compensation committee could do to me. What is happening to you right now is a version of what happened to me 12 years ago, and I did not have someone in my life then who could take some of the weight off, and I have never forgotten what it felt like to carry it alone. I am not going to let you carry it alone. Iris, you do not get to decide for me what I put at risk on your behalf. That is not fair to you, and it is not fair to me. Do you understand?" "I understand," I said. I understand that I made a decision on your behalf, and that you would like me to consult you next time. And I am telling you that I do not want you to spend professional capital on me. I made the decision I made because I do not want to be a partner who was made because Iris Callahan intervened. I want to be a partner because I earned it. Iris looked at me. You are more stubborn than I gave you credit for. I have tried 3 cases against you. You should have known that. I knew it professionally. I did not know it was your posture in your kitchen. She almost smiled. Then the almost smile was gone, and she was looking at me with the specific attention she gave to a witness in the moment before she asked the question that mattered. Blair. Yes. I am going to touch you now. I looked at her. If that is not what you want, she said, you need to tell me now. It is what I want. Say it. That is what I want, Iris. She stood. She crossed the 2 steps between our armchairs, and she stopped in front of me, and she lifted her hand and rested her palm against my jaw. It was the first time she had touched me on the skin in the 6 years I had known her. I closed my eyes. Iris said, quietly, Look at me. I opened my eyes. She was looking at me. In the courtroom, she looked at witnesses with the composed neutrality of a professional. In the library, she had looked at me with the effort of composure. Now she was looking at me with no composure at all, and it was the first honest thing her face had ever done in my presence. I have been thinking about this, she said, since the Rendell case, 4.5 years. I know. I want to be careful with it. I know. She leaned down until her forehead was against mine, and she held the position for what might have been 5 seconds or 50, and gave me every chance to decide what happened next. I lifted my hand. I put it at the back of her neck, and I drew her the last inch. She kissed me. It was slow. It was not tentative. Iris Callahan had never done anything tentatively in her life. It was slow because slow was what she had decided to be, and because she had waited 4.5 years and had no interest in rushing it. She pulled back after a moment. She did not pull away. She looked at me. That was worth 16 weeks, she said. That was worth 6 years, I said. She almost smiled again. I am going to sit down, she said. I am going to sit down because if I do not sit down, I am going to make a set of decisions I told you I was not going to make, and I would rather sit down than break my own word. Sit down. She sat down. Not in her armchair, on the arm of mine, so that her hand could rest at the back of my neck, and neither of us had to move any further. Is this all right? She said. This is all right. We were quiet for a long time, her hip against my shoulder, the tea cooling on the table. Eventually she said, Tell me about Grant. I told her. I told her the entire conversation. Grant's phrasing about the appearance of impropriety, the photograph on his monitor, Ada's 3 women. 2 of them stayed. 1 of them left. The one who left had the most fulfilling career. Iris listened. When I was done, she was quiet. Then she said, What is your read on Ada? She thinks I will make partner. That is not what I asked. I thought for a moment. My read on Ada is that she is preparing me to leave. Iris nodded once. She is not preparing you to leave in the sense of pushing you out. She is preparing you to have a choice. She is a woman who was told, at some point in her early 40s, that she should manage her associations. And she made the choice she made, and she does not want you to make that choice without knowing what it costs. Yes, I am going to say something now that I need you to think about, not decide about. Okay, there is a partnership open at Merrick Stone next year. I turned my head. Iris, I am not offering it to you. I do not offer partnerships. I am telling you that our compensation committee has been discussing expanding the litigation partnership for 18 months and has been slow to identify candidates. I want you to know that the version of your career where Grant Cade decides in April is not the only version. That is a very strategic thing to say to a woman you just kissed for the first time. I am a strategic woman. I know. And I am not going to stop being a strategic woman. I am going to be strategic about you. I am going to be strategic on your behalf. And I need you to understand that that is a form of care and not a form of manipulation. I do not interpret it as manipulation. Good. She was quiet for a moment. Then she said, "The other thing I want to tell you is that I am going to disclose to my managing partner tomorrow. I am going to tell him that I have begun a personal relationship with opposing counsel on the Voss matter, that the relationship began after the verdict, and that I am recusing from any active matters between our two firms until my managing partner and I have worked out an appropriate framework for the disclosure. I have already drafted the memo. I wrote it in my car in front of your building before I decided whether to knock. You drafted a disclosure memo before you knocked on my door. I told you I am a strategic woman. That is not strategic. That is prepared. I am also going to withdraw from the Mirren matter. I have not been formally lead on Mirren yet, but I am scheduled to be, and I will not be. I will tell my managing partner that I am withdrawing, and I will tell him why, and I will tell him that if my firm has a problem with that, I am prepared to talk about what my problem with my firm looks like." I stared at her. "You are going to walk away from a case. I am going to hand a case off to a colleague who is capable of handling it, Blair. If I do not disclose, and I do not withdraw, then in 8 weeks Grant Cade is going to have a legitimate ethical claim against us both, and it will land on the Compensation Committee's desk in the middle of your partnership review, and it will end you. If I do disclose, then Grant Cade has an inconvenience but not an ethics claim, and the committee has to evaluate you on the merits. Do you see?" I saw. "You will take a professional hit. I will take a small one. I have 4 years of partnership standing, and my managing partner is not going to lose me over one recusal. This is not sacrifice, this is arithmetic. My hit is small and yours is potentially catastrophic, and I am going to take mine before yours becomes yours. That is not fair to you. You do not get to decide what is fair to me. I told you that half an hour ago." I said, "Okay. Okay? Okay. Disclose. Recuse from Mirren. I am not going to fight you on this because you are right about the arithmetic, and because I already made the decision about Grant on my own, and I owe you the reciprocal courtesy of not making this one on your behalf." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she said quietly, "Thank you, Iris. Yes, I am going to make partner. You are going to make partner, either at Whitmore and Cade in April or at another firm within 18 months. The version of the story where you do not make partner does not exist because I have watched you try 3 cases and I know what you are. Do you understand?" "Yes." "Good." Eventually she said, "I should leave." "You should not leave. You should stay. On the couch. I am not asking for anything more than that. I have been sleeping alone for 11 days of trial, and 6 days of jury, and 1 gala, and 1 library meeting, and 6 years of preemptive discipline. And I would like to sleep in the same room as you tonight. Not the same bed, the same room." She looked at me for a long time. She said, "That is all right." She stayed on the couch. I gave her the blanket from the linen closet and a pillow from my bed, and I left the small lamp on the side table burning, and I went to my bedroom and lay down in the black dress I had not managed to take off, and I lay awake for a long time in the dark. At some point I slept. At some point later, Iris slept. At 6 in the morning, I woke up and walked out into the living room, and she was already awake, sitting up on the couch with the blanket around her shoulders, drinking a fresh cup of tea she had made herself in my kitchen. She looked up when I came in. "Good morning," I said. "Good morning. You made tea." I did not want to leave without saying goodbye. I thought a cup of tea was the least alarming way to be awake in your kitchen at 5:40. I sat down beside her on the couch. She said, "I am going to disclose this morning at 9. I know. I will call you tonight." "Okay, Blair. This is not going to be easy. I know. I want you to know that I am not going anywhere. I am telling you that at 6 in the morning on my couch because I want you to have that sentence in your head when you go into the office today and when you talk to Ada and when you see Grant. You are staying. I am staying." I nodded. She stood up and folded the blanket and set it on the arm of the couch, and she put her cup in the sink, and she took her coat from the hook, and she paused at the door and looked at me. "See you soon," she said. "See you soon." She left. I sat on the couch for a long time in the small early light of my apartment. At 7, I got up and got dressed. At 9, I was at my desk. At 10:15, Ada Whitmore called me into her office. She was standing at the window when I came in, watching the courthouse across the street. She turned when the door closed. "Sit down, Blair." I sat. She did not sit. She poured herself a cup of tea and stood there with it in her hand and did not offer me one, which was different from her usual choreography. She said, "I received an email 15 minutes ago from the managing partner at Merrick Stone." I looked at her. "He is informing me, as a professional courtesy, that Iris Callahan has disclosed a personal relationship with you, and that she is recusing from any active matters between our two firms." "Yes, you knew this was coming," she told me last night. "When did the relationship begin?" "Last night." Ada took a sip of tea. "That is a very carefully timed relationship. It is timed to a jury verdict, not to a review cycle." "I understand that. Ada, I need you to hear the version of this that is not politically convenient." "I am listening." I told her about the 12 seconds on the marble staircase, about the bar, about the library, and the second library, and the 16-week discipline, about the trial, that Iris had come to my apartment last night, that we had spoken for 4 hours, that Iris had drafted a disclosure memo in her car before deciding whether to knock, that Iris had made her decision independently, and that I had made mine independently, and that both of us had at every point in the process prioritized the courtroom. Ada listened. When I was done, she was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "You are a lucky woman, Blair." "Yes. She is being very careful with you." "That is a rare thing in this profession. I will not get used to it." "See that you do not." She sat down finally. "Grant is going to be difficult. He is going to argue that the timing of the disclosure raises questions about the trial. He is going to argue that the compensation committee needs to review whether you conducted yourself properly during the Voss matter. He is going to try to hold your partnership until the review is complete, which will take 3 to 6 months, and which will put you into a review cycle in September that is less favorable than April. So he is going to slow me down. He is going to try. He is going to fail, but he is going to make it unpleasant. Unpleasant enough that at some point in the next 6 weeks, you are going to consider the offer that Iris did not explicitly make you last night, but that Merrick Stone has been quietly informing the market about for 18 months. I looked at her. "How did you know about that?" "Blair, I have been a name partner at a mid-size firm in this city for 35 years. I know every partnership opening at every peer firm within a 100-mile radius before the partners themselves know. Merrick Stone has been looking for a litigation partner for a year and a half and has not filled the seat because they have not found the right candidate. You are telling me they are looking for me. I am telling you that when your partnership review at Whitmore and Cade becomes difficult, you are going to have a real alternative to consider. I want you to consider it with your eyes open. I am not going to lie to you and tell you Merrick Stone would be a better firm. It is a similar firm, run by different people, with different politics, and Iris Callahan works there, which is a data point I do not know how to weigh for you. I do not need you to weigh it for me." "Good." She sat forward. "Here is what I am going to do. I am going to argue to the compensation committee that the disclosure is timely, that the courtroom conduct was exemplary on both sides, and that any delay in your partnership review would be substantively unjustifiable. I am also going to file a memorandum to the committee outlining a formal position that any relationship disclosure between opposing counsel that has been handled in accordance with Bar Association guidance is not a basis for delaying an internal review. I am going to make it so procedurally clean that Grant cannot object without looking like an ideologue. You have been preparing this memorandum for 11 days, since the Voss trial started. You knew." "I did not know. I suspected. I have been suspecting since the gala. I decided 6 weeks ago that if I was going to fight for you on the partnership, I was going to fight for you on this." "Ada." She looked at me. "Blair, I told you 3 months ago that I have watched this conversation happen to 3 women in my time here. What I did not tell you is that when it happened to one of the 3, I did not fight for her the way I should have. And I have thought about that woman for 27 years, and I have wanted, in the private parts of my professional life that I do not talk about, for another chance. You are having your other chance. I am. I said, thank you, Ada. You are welcome. Now go to your office and let me deal with Grant. 3 days later, Iris and I met for dinner. She had chosen the restaurant. It was a small Italian place 4 blocks from her firm, the kind of place that had been in the neighborhood for 30 years. The waiter knew her. He seated us at a corner table by the window and brought Iris a bottle of the house Chianti without asking, and Iris looked at me across the table and said, "This is the first restaurant I have been to in this city, with a person I am seeing in 11 years. 11 years. I have not had time. I have not had bandwidth. I have not, in 11 years, met a person I wanted to sit across a table from and let the waiter know about. Iris, I am telling you so that you understand that when I bring you here, I am doing something I have not done in a decade, and that when the waiter comes over and looks at us with the specific attention of a man who has known me for 8 years, I want you to notice. I will notice." The waiter came over. He looked at us with the specific attention of a man who had known her for 8 years. He said, in Italian, "It is good to see you here with a friend, Miss Callahan." Iris said, in Italian, "Yes, this is Miss Sutton. She is an attorney at another firm. She is very talented." The waiter smiled. He took our orders. He went away. Iris looked at me. "He does not speak English?" "He does. He is being discreet. He has known me a long time, and he has never seen me sit across a table from a woman in a way that suggested I wanted her to be told about." "Iris, you are going to make me embarrassed in a public restaurant. I am going to make you what you have already been for 6 years. I am simply going to name it." I looked at her. She was in a soft, dark sweater. Her hair was down. She was wearing the platinum earrings from the gala. She said, "The disclosure has been processed." "How did it go?" "My managing partner was clean about it. He is not sentimental. He said the arithmetic was simple, and that he would rather have me recuse from Mirren than have me quit if the firm pushed me. And he asked me whether I would consider a formal ethics wall on any future matter that involves Whitmore and Cade. And I said yes. And we agreed to a memo. It will be circulated Monday." "That is the whole disclosure?" "That is the whole disclosure. The Bar Association will require a filing, but the filing is procedural. It is not going to be interesting." "What about the Mirren case?" "Nita Chen is taking it over. She is very good." "You have handed the case off completely?" "Yes." I looked at her. That was not a small thing. It was not a small thing. It was also not the largest thing I have done this week. This week I have done a lot of things. Sitting across from you at this restaurant is a larger thing than handing off a case. I looked at her. "Iris, yes. I am glad you are the person you are." She looked at me for a long moment. "I am glad you are the person you are," she said. We ate. We talked about the restaurant, and about a case she had won 6 years ago that I had heard about but had never been permitted to ask her about. We talked about Ada. We talked about the specific feeling of losing to someone you did not want to lose to. Iris admitted that she had, over 3 trials, developed a private list of the specific tactical moves I made that she considered elegant. I admitted that I had memorized the small line at her temple that appeared when she was making an effort to keep her expression composed. We laughed. Not often. Iris did not laugh often. But when we did, it landed the way a piece of good news lands in a person who has been waiting for it. 2 hours passed. At 9:15, Iris looked at me across the table and said, "There is a woman at the bar who has been watching us for 10 minutes. I did not look. "Who is she?" "She is a reporter for the legal press. Her name is Cass. She has been covering our firm for 6 years. Iris. It is fine, I know Cass. She is going to come over and say hello, and I am going to introduce you, and she is going to draw her own conclusions, and she is going to be right about them. And then she is going to go home and not write about it because Cass understands the difference between news and gossip." I looked at her. She was very steady. I said, "Introduce me." Iris waved Cass over. Cass was a small woman in her 50s, with gray hair cut short and a leather jacket, and she came over to our table with the kind of quiet warmth that veteran reporters use when they are not on a story. Iris, it has been a while. Cass, this is Blair Sutton. She is a senior associate at Whitmore and Cade. Cass looked at me with the specific attention of a professional who was going to notice everything and be discreet about it. Miss Sutton, I know your work. The Marchetti argument was very fine. Thank you. Iris is a hard person to sit across from. I imagine she is a harder person to have dinner with. She is being very polite tonight. Cass smiled. Well, it is nice to see both of you here. I will not intrude further. She looked at Iris. Iris looked at her. Something small passed between them. Cass nodded once, went back to the bar, finished her drink, and left the restaurant without looking at us again. Iris looked at me across the table. Cass will not write anything. How do you know? Because I have known her for 15 years, and I have never asked her for a favor, and she is a person who keeps track of that, and she has just decided to bank the favor for later. You are counting favors. I have to. This is the profession. It is. She looked at me for a long moment. She said, quietly, "It matters to me that you did not flinch. When Cass came over. You did not flinch. You did not look away. You did not adjust your posture or your face. You looked at her the way you would look at any professional acquaintance at any restaurant. That is what I was supposed to do. Yes, I did the thing I was supposed to do, Iris. You did the thing many people cannot do. That is why I am naming it. I did not flinch. I said, because I do not have anything to flinch about. I am at dinner with a woman I care about. I am not doing anything wrong. The disclosure has been made. The recusal has been filed. I have done everything the profession asks of me, and I have done it correctly, and I am not going to spend the rest of my career apologizing with my body for something I do not need to apologize for. Iris looked at me. Blair, I want you to know that when the review comes down in April, or in September, or whenever Grant Cade manages to arrange for it to come down, and whatever the committee decides, I am going to be exactly where I am tonight. I know. We paid the check. The waiter walked us to the door. He shook Iris's hand and nodded at me, and did not say anything he did not need to. We walked out onto the street. It was cold. The sidewalk was wet from an earlier rain that had passed while we were at dinner. There was a taxi at the corner. Iris said, "Come home with me." I looked at her. Iris, I know what I said last time. I know I said patient. I know I said careful. I am not walking that back. I am asking you to come home with me, and to stay, and to let the two of us keep being careful, and to let being careful include the specific kind of care that involves not sleeping in separate apartments across town from each other on the third night we have been officially together. I looked at her. I said, okay. We took the taxi to her apartment. What happened between us that night is not for a public accounting. There are things that belong to two people and are not for the record. I will say only that she was as careful with me as she had been on the couch 3 days before, and that I was as careful with her, and that both of us understood that we were laying the foundation for something we intended to build slowly and well. I stayed until morning. She made coffee. She brought me a robe. We did not speak much, but the not speaking had the specific quality of not needing to speak. At 7:30 I left for the office. The partnership review at Whitmore and Cade was delayed, as Ada had predicted, from April to September. Grant Cade did not vote against me. He voted for a procedural delay, which was a smaller and more deniable act. And Ada wrote her memorandum, and the compensation committee argued about it for 11 weeks, and by August the argument was substantively over even if the vote had not yet been taken. In September the committee voted 5-2. I made partner at Whitmore and Cade. Ada called me into her office on the day of the vote and poured me a glass of champagne and told me that she was proud of me and that she was proud of herself, and that in a decade she was going to be looking at me across a table in the same way she was looking at me now, and that I should not forget what this had cost either of us. I did not forget. Grant Cade did not attend the partnership announcement dinner. He sent a note. Iris did. She came as my guest. She stood beside me in a navy dress and her hair was down and she was wearing the platinum earrings. Ada introduced her to the room as Blair's partner, Iris Callahan of Merrick Stone, in the deliberately loaded phrasing of a woman who was going to make sure the whole room heard the sentence in the shape she intended it, and the room absorbed the sentence and moved on, because that is what rooms do when they are given no other choice. At the end of the evening, we walked out together. A Bar Association photographer was doing candid shots for the following year's newsletter. He asked, politely, if he could take a photograph. Iris looked at me. I said, yes. We stood on the small landing outside the ballroom. Iris put her hand at the small of my back. The photographer took the photograph. He said, one more? Iris did not move her hand. He took another. He thanked us. He walked away. Iris's hand stayed at my waist. I counted. 12 seconds. 15. 20. Iris said quietly, I am not going to let go this time. I know. I did not let go last time either. I know that too. Blair. Yes. Take me home. We walked out into the October air. It was the third week of October, and the Bar Association had scheduled the following year's gala for the third Friday of the month, which was exactly 1 year to the day from the marble staircase, and both of us knew this, and neither of us said it. We took a taxi to her apartment, which was becoming, slowly and carefully, our apartment. My things had begun to appear on her bookshelves. Her coffee had begun to appear in my kitchen. Neither of us had proposed a formal arrangement, because we were not yet in a place where formal arrangements would be appropriate, but the geography of our lives had shifted, and both of us had noticed, and neither of us had chosen to reverse it. She unlocked her front door. She stepped aside to let me in. I paused in the doorway. Iris. Yes. When I made partner today, the first thing I thought was that I wanted to tell you. I know. You knew before I told you. You have been running back-channel calls with Ada for 3 months. I have been being appropriately informed as a person with a documented ethics wall on all matters between our firms. That is the same thing. It is the same thing. I looked at her. She was standing in the entry of her apartment in the navy dress, and her hair was down, and the platinum earrings caught the light from the hallway sconce, and she looked at me with the specific unguarded attention she had learned to give me over the course of a year, and I understood, with a clarity that had not been available to me at any earlier point in my life, that this was the woman I was going to spend the rest of my career sitting across restaurants from, and standing on staircases beside, and being photographed with, and going home to. Come inside, she said. I stepped inside. She closed the door behind me. She took my hand. She led me to the small living room where she had begun to keep, on the second shelf of the bookcase, a photograph of the two of us from the Bar Association newsletter, the one from the year before, the one where I had my hand at the small of her back, and she had her body leaned against my hip. She had framed it. I had not noticed before. When did you frame that? Last week. You did not tell me. I wanted you to notice on your own. I looked at the photograph for a long moment. Then I turned to her. I kissed her in the small, warm light of her apartment on the night I had made partner at a firm that had, 1 year and 11 months earlier, tried to make me choose between her and my career, and neither of us had chosen, and both of us had won. She pulled back an inch. Blair. Yes. I am going to spend the rest of my life not letting go of you at photograph time. I know. She almost smiled. Then she let herself, for once, fully smile, and I saw the small transformation of her face that only I had ever been permitted to see, and I understood that I was the person who got to see it, and that was the reward for 6 years of professional geography and 16 weeks of discipline, and 1 year of careful, deliberate, mutual construction. The rest of the evening does not belong to the record. But the record ends here, on the note that anyone paying attention would have been able to predict from the moment Iris Callahan did not let go of my waist on the marble staircase of the Whitfield Hotel ballroom on the third Friday of October the year before, that both of us had known, from the first second of the 12 seconds, exactly where this was going to end. And that when it ended, it would end here, in her apartment, with the framed photograph on the bookshelf, and her hand at my waist, and neither of us letting go. I did not let go. She did not let go. Neither of us let go.